Hi, and welcome back to the Lemonade Podcast. This is episode 5, and I'm your host, Jyoti Patel, helping you explore ways we can turn life's lemons into something just a little bit sweeter. This is where we move through the messy middle, pressing pain into purpose and setbacks into strength. Before you know it, they'll even become your secret superpower. For today's episode, this one is dedicated to people that are experiencing job losses or underemployment, the feeling of being squeezed in a mass layoff with a high cost of living, a job market in a volatile global economy. Somehow, the maths just don't math anymore. So if you've been feeling that erosion of your confidence and your peace in the middle of the night, bear with me as we move through the in-between of how to sustain yourself in mind, body and soul, between jobs, between employment, between paychecks, whatever it is you're going through. I hope that this episode will just give you a little bit of comfort along the way as I talk about the resurrection of hope. As I think about my own experience of being laid off, I just recall there were so many stages that went with that, lots of layers. I had a lot of work ahead of me. After already dealing with quite a few things earlier in the year, it was a journey, and it still continues to be. My faith is something that is what I choose to lean upon in these times. I can't say it's everyone's chosen route. You all have your own way of dealing with life, but for me, it was really important to remember the promises that I'd read about in the Bible, where God talks about how to navigate such times. There were so many moments where I just was like, God, where are you in this? Because I'm trying here, but nothing makes sense, and I don't know where to turn and how to do this. It was tough because I didn't feel like I had anything left to give. I didn't know how to just kind of get through a day. And for a long time, I realized I was finding ways to make what was happening about me in terms of my identity, feeling a sense of shame, embarrassment or guilt, letting that define my value in society. But we all have choices in how we walk life. I don't ignore what my body says. I think we're meant to be holistic beings in mind, body and soul. So I take the feedback from the reality of how that registers on a fight or flight situation when your body's under threat. It wants to keep you alive, and it will draw energy and strength from wherever it has to make that happen. But I also realized I needed more than that to hold me in place. I learned how not to dilute the signs of the messiness, being in survival mode, and to just bring that to God, to invite Him into the messy version of what had become my life in a new chapter that I didn't understand. And I was trying to learn how to surrender the outcomes, timelines, and the decisions. And that's hard to do. For many years I've been self-employed, and I have worked and still do as an actor in the entertainment industry. There is a lot of rejection, a lot of uncertainty. It's not the pretty highlight reels that you see on social media. It's anxiety and exhaustion, floating between jobs and creative endeavors, trying to keep things moving in one direction, but trying to stay creative in another. So I'm going to share with you a deeper dive on how I have been and continue to navigate this uncertainty. Join me in the Citrus Chronicle. It was a season that really stretched me. One that started off being curious on how to surrender and be more still. And then a strange process of trying to readapt and integrate my life back into normality after what had really been quite impactful changes that had been taking place, not just in my body, but also in my soul. So I booked a simple vacation, nothing extravagant, just a deliberate pause to reconnect with myself and process some stuff that happened, and to get myself on the front foot a little bit so that I could step back into my responsibilities with a bit more zest. And I remember over that week, it was so nice to step into a softer way of living, a slower lane. I felt my shoulders drop and my thoughts became clearer. I was sleeping better, and I returned feeling, yeah, I got this, let's go. So I came back to regular life, I guess, and then learnt that there had been changes at work and That was quite a whiplash moment. I'd done all this work to get myself into the right headspace, and then decisions were made for me. And that was quite a struggle initially. I was overwhelmed with what that meant and how to deal with the impact of that. It felt like the rug had been pulled from under my feet. It was complicated. It was a journey, one that began with complete confusion and shock. Didn't really know what was happening. I felt disorientated. And then there was a rejection that went with the formality of how these things are handled, and that really wasn't helped by a mountain of admin that goes with being laid off. Finding new healthcare, sorting out my 401k, dealing with severance negotiations, and of course then there were the practical questions about finances and logistics, and what does that mean, and where do I live as a result of that? But it was also a strange sense of relief. It was nice not to deal with the crazy wake-up call and commuting and dealing with inbox ambush by 8:03. I'd get to finish a whole cup of coffee and I could connect with the outside world. But then those days became weeks and those weeks became months. And you start shrinking, or at least I felt like I was. And the space of trying to navigate and rebuild just felt more challenging. A new type of vulnerability in an unfamiliar market. And then there was anger, grief, exhaustion, and finally acceptance. So it was this stage that I really struggled to navigate, were it not for this amazing community of friends that I have. And on the one hand, I embraced it as a reset, but on the other hand, it felt like an unraveling too. Of course, there were the posts where I'm thrilled to announce would show up on my LinkedIn feed, and that really just wasn't helpful. I'm happy for those people, but it just wasn't what I needed to see in those moments. So I would close my laptop, go for a walk, be with my thoughts, cry, vent, do whatever to just process. My stomach would be in knots as I would eventually open my banking app and deal with invoices that needed to get paid and mental arithmetic so that I could use what I have wisely. I would feel like I'm applying for jobs and updating my CV, building things as much as I could. But on another level, the anxiety of wondering, well, how long will my resources stretch when there's nothing new coming in? The job search was not glamorous, and trying to compress years of experience into a CV that fits 2 pages and pulls out all the right words for AI or whatever it does in these portals, it became exhausting. Each day began to lose its own identity. I'd use the same words over and over, dynamic, fast-paced, high-performing. And then I realised, is this really what I want? Uploading my resume into online portals, typing out the same information, going on the same hamster wheel, albeit in a different form. The corporate job was really to sustain the creative life, and now both of those seem to be in jeopardy. Most people I know seem to be getting laid off in some shape or form. I then found myself in this weird holding place, just different trends in industries that made no sense anymore. All of a sudden, I didn't know where I fit on that spectrum of either. The whole world of entertainment had changed. I understood the reality. The opportunities are not as abundant as they used to be. Neither is the pay. Although there had been a pandemic and AI and strikes, fewer auditions, fewer bookings, agents that had gone out of business, actors who couldn't sustain themselves, and the way that viewers consume entertainment, streaming platforms, business models. And it was this space of feeling like I'd failed, like I hadn't got a lot to show for my efforts. I guess the quieter questions started to come to the surface. I have a faith. Isn't this the time to lean in and not view my employer as my sense of worth or validation, but to trust that God's got a plan? And it's not easy to do that, to be in the mess and to take that to God. There were days I couldn't even articulate my prayers. I just had to trust that He could hear and feel what was happening in my heart, or the uncertainty, or the fears, or the emotions. I had to give it to God and be like, here you go, this is yours. I don't know what to do with any of this. I feel that I've navigated a lot in my life, but the combination of all these factors kicking in at the same time, it was just a bit much. Yes, I could lean into fear, or I could lean into faith. And for me, fear seems kind of pointless and destructive. And there's no judgment on feeling it. We all feel what we feel. I too have lived in that space and still do on certain days. But then I realized it's not something I want to lean into. Your nervous system, or at least mine, was reacting to the multiple stresses that it had gone through. And it was important to not ignore that, because even if I wanted to, I couldn't. I felt out of sync. Blood work was evidence of that. And so that was the feedback I was getting. I think our bodies and our brains are wired to show us when we're coming off track. I also needed to know what to do with that. There's only so many supplements and exercises you can do. At some point, it needs to go a bit deeper rather than just pretending everything's fine. And so I've learnt and still learn consciously how to pour my fear into faith. I had to bring that into my prayer life and get real with God. Instead of trying to articulate perfect prayers, just be like, you know what? I'm angry, or I'm hurt, or I'm confused and I don't know where I'm going. Or sometimes it would just look like crying sessions where nothing useful would come out, but there was a relief and a sense of my spirit just kind of opening up and letting him in. And when the world around me felt so loud, I felt a sense of peace and calm that would come from this different place, somewhere much deeper than just body and brain. It was all I know is that the loss of stability and security, it's draining. But what if I talk to God like he's my chief exec? So then I pictured a boardroom in my mind, all my folders spread out in front of me: job search, finances, healthcare, creative opportunities, the future. Me sitting there trying to make sense of all of this, 15 major decisions all at once that would just feel overwhelming. So I said, officially, I resign as chief exec of my life, and be like, do you know what? Here are my plans. I don't know what to do anymore. Every time I try to make a plan, it gets unraveled. Over to you. Show me how to do this. Show me how to untangle all these moving parts, because right now I don't know which one to tackle first. And letting that go, it felt quite a relief. And I'm not saying it absolves responsibility and decision making, but there are ways that I could do that differently. I could either just do it on my own strength, or I could let him show me the way forward. And I still don't know exactly what that looks like, but there is a certain peace that comes with letting go, making plans with loose hands. As I juggle decisions that could dictate my geography, my profession, my future generally, I can say that timing is not tidy, because this isn't just a story about finding the next role or the next paycheck. It's about learning how to live in faith, how to invite God into the messiness and the limitations that go with having an imperfect life. It's not easy, and decisions don't work according to the pace I would like them to move at sometimes. So I'm trying to surrender the outcome of those decisions and timelines. Saying I have faith and walking in faith can be quite different. I have a spiritual practice. I try to pray and read scripture and memorize verses that are applicable in certain situations. And then there's the reality when the tension of having a faith conflicts with the human side of walking it, feeling the feelings. I had to have some serious talks to myself and be real with the fact that things were not right for a long time. And yeah, I was meant to be walking out a faith that clearly didn't seem like it was solid enough, because my stomach still did the somersaults when life just felt like I was working on shaky ground. And I realized that I think I had been doing this the wrong way, trying to work through that process of uncertainty and the anxiety and the messiness of all of it. And I'm not sure where I'm going, honestly. Some days I question everything: my geography, my profession, my past, my present, my future. Am I doing any of it right? I don't know. All I know is that I can present the reality of my life and being prayerful about decisions that I'm making, just trying to give space for God to move into that process with me, to lead me and show me over time what makes sense for my life. So I'm like, here you go. Here's the messy middle. Do with that what you will, because honestly, it can't be worse than what I've done. I don't know if this resonates for anybody else that's feeling burnt out or at a loss as to how to move into their next chapter. It's really important to acknowledge the mundaneness of being without work and what that feels like, but to also honor that there are ways that you can navigate that might not make sense on the surface, but can actually sustain you for the longer term. He says in the Bible, if you love him with all your heart, and I think it's all your heart and soul, that he will make our path straight. So I appreciate that's not everybody's journey or desire, but it's something that has helped me. And maybe there's something in that can help you in your walk too. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, feel free to reach out and we can go a bit deeper. We all have choices in how we move through life, and I made a decision to not let that be the defining value of my worth in society. And it's very easy when you've worked in a place to feel like that's all you have and that's all you're worth, but actually there's more to life. Yes, a job is really important and I still cherish a stable income, but your health and your well-being are far more valuable. So I learned to read the signs of what my body was giving me, to let my nervous system be a compass or a report card or feedback that was letting me know what was on track and what wasn't. See what I'd been sensing in my spirit, I suppose. There are highs and there are lows, and there are going to be times when you float between unknowns. It's very rare to have security that comes in the form of a job that gives you lasting peace, but I choose to let that come from a different place. This is Sip and Pour, where I can give you some gentle practices to help you move through the messy middle. You don't need to fix your whole life at once. You can start by simply, first of all, just name the story, not just the label of saying you're unemployed or you're bad with money. Give this chapter of your life some honest context and just maybe take a journal and spend 5 minutes writing a little paragraph about the fact that you're looking for work after whatever it is that's unfolded in your life. You're not making excuses, but you're telling the truth. And that will help your mind move from what's wrong with me to, well, of course I'm exhausted. Second of all, if you have a faith, separate that from your feelings. So next time you open up your banking app or a job portal or feel the jolt of panic, remind yourself that your hope is real, but your nervous system is scared. And both can be true at the same time. If you're somebody that spends time in a spiritual practice, it might sound like, yes, I believe in X, Y, and Z, but my anxiety is also real too. Letting yourself acknowledge that you have both dualities in your life and not to feel ashamed of that. You're just being human. The point is to turn a shame that can spiral into an honest conversation with whatever brings you the most support in your life. Number 3, try to live on today's portion rather than fixing your whole life. When we've gone through a big deal, we ask ourselves questions like, what's my next career move? How is this all going to work out? What's my 5-year plan going to look like? How much will I have to retire on, etc.? And those questions do matter, but it's too much to answer all in one day. So maybe just ask yourself, what do I need to think about today? What's the one thing I can do to move forward? Whether that be a job application, not 10, whether that's connecting with somebody in your network and having a meaningful conversation. Maybe it's just one simple act of self-care so that you're not overstretched and you're acknowledging whatever you're feeling requires attention, whether that's drinking more water, going to bed earlier, getting out into nature, whatever it is that brings you a bit of respite and refreshment. Remember to pace yourself because job searches are a marathon, so you don't want to cram. Number 4, just do a nervous system check-in with yourself. How am I feeling today? Asking yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I showing up? If it's like a 2 or a 3 or something, just try to sit there and connect with what you're feeling, but also acknowledge that you can change that too. Take a few deep breaths. I don't know if you're familiar with box breathing. It's breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and release for 4. And that regulates your nervous system. And if you're somebody who likes to pray, well, that activates a part of your brain. I think it's called the hippocampus. And it's the same part of your brain that shows up when you're meditating. That also works for me. It's very powerful. The more you get used to establishing a certain practice, the more it becomes like muscle memory. You're teaching your body that your mind doesn't have full control and that you can anchor yourself in ways that can help you move forward. So let me peel this back for you before we close. I'm not sharing this from a place of this is what I went through and everything is perfect. It's definitely not that. I'm still experimenting, I'm still building, I'm still checking in with what I need to do with the everyday decisions, asking myself, like, God, where are we going? You opened doors for me to move to a new country, to establish a life here, and now it feels like it's going in reverse. What's that about? It's confusing, and there are days when my faith feels completely stretched, my finances feel rocky, and my body is just getting through the day, sometimes on reserve. But then I remember the gift of hope, what that means, and how it can wake us up from a slumber of the reality that we think is our future, and actually it doesn't have to be. You're more than just your employment status, you're more than just your bank balance, you are a whole person, a human being in a hard chapter, and this is not your forever state. You're allowed to feel messy. We all have pain that shows up in different ways, but what you do with that experience, how you choose to move through that and get to the other side, well, that's up to you. You can either be defeated by it, hustle your way through it, or you can have faith. I don't know what your version of that is, but whatever it is, there is purpose in that season. For me, it's often led to growth and the ability to pour into other people that are going through similar situations. So I know that place, and Lemonade was really created as part of that. A place where you can say, it's confusing, I feel stretched, I don't know what to do. A place of soft landings for tender times. I really want you to take away from this that there is hope, and how you choose to resurrect that is really up to you. For me, I turn to the power of prayer and a community that helps me move through some tough times, but also where I find friendship and just a foundation of faith that really helps me move through life. I'm still a work in progress, and there are days that seem easier than others, but there are days when I feel like, oh God, what are we doing here? I don't know how to keep doing this. But I want you to know there's always hope. You're more than just your bank balance and your job status. So if you're somebody that is going through some hard times right now, just know you're not alone. If I'm somebody who has been there, is partially still in it, but I also have a wealth of background in how to help navigate uncertainty and volatility of living in the in-between. Message me, email me, reach out if you need extra coaching, and we can go deeper into what that looks like. If this episode resonated, please do share it with somebody else who's going through their own messy middle, if they're in between jobs or have just been laid off. And if you feel up to it, I'd love to hear your story. On days when hope feels small, just remember that you don't know what's around the corner. It takes one conversation, one person to step onto your path, one opportunity that can turn things all around. But for now, thank you for watching or listening, and see you in episode 6.